Everyone was surprised when the old man walked in. What was someone like him doing in a place like this? Surely there was nothing for him here. There was no reason to keep this man in the bank. For all they cared, he could be a security threat and had to be removed, but the man showed no signs of leaving. Hello everyone, and welcome to our channel. Today we have the story of an old man who managed to shock everyone in the bank he walked into. Before we get into the details, make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to our channel. Remember to click on that little bell icon so you never miss any of our great stories. To understand the mystery behind the old man, we have to go back to his childhood, when the old man, Don Epifanio, was just a little boy. His family was poor. Epifanio's parents managed to make a living by farming beans and selling them at markets. They didn't have much, but the family was happy and content. Despite their hardships, his parents somehow found ways to make ends meet, so that little Epifanio could go to school. They wanted him to have a better life that they could never enjoy themselves. Bean farming was starting to pay off as well. His parents were glad that they now had an extra few coins at hand. If this streak continued, they would be able to live quite comfortably. The family was delighted at this prospect. But all this happiness soon came to an end. A few burglars in the neighborhood had gotten wind of their little fortune. They broke into the house one night, and little Epifanio, along with his parents, rushed to the front door to see what the racket was all about. Epifanio's father knew what the men had come for as soon as he saw them, but this was their hard-earned money. It was also his son's future. He couldn't just let some thugs come in and take away everything he'd worked for, right? Having been confronted, the thugs were ready for a fight. Epifanio's father wasn't giving up so easily. As Epifanio's mother screamed and stared in shock, the burglars murdered their father. They then took the money and escaped before they got caught. Epifanio's mother and him were left all alone with their father's body. Her mother cried and cried. Epifanio didn't know what to do. The men were never caught, and no one really cared much to find just for some peasants. His mother knew that she was now the only support her son had left. She was devastated at the death of her husband, the love of her life. But she had to be strong, for her son's sake at least. She returned to the fields to try and earn at least some of the money that they'd lost. But farming wasn't something that brought profits overnight, and those thugs had made sure to leave nothing behind. Epifanio's mother desperately needed some money at hand. She went to the local bank for support. The bank wouldn't budge. They were not going to give this mother any financial aid. The staff at the bank knew her troubles, but they had no way of making certain that the bank would be repaid. They had no choice but to turn her away. Epifanio's mother was lost. She didn't know what else to do. Losing her husband was bad enough. Now she barely had any money to give her son a proper meal. She wanted to be strong, but at that moment, she felt utterly devastated. She was desperate to find some money, and that's when she heard of a restaurant owner that rented lands from the farmers in the area. The way the rumors went, he didn't pay a fair price and was a harsh man to deal with. They had a small piece of land on which their family grew the crops. Epifanio's mother gave this money to the man in return for a sum much less than its value. She was in no position to argue and simply took whatever rent he gave. Epifanio's mother was allowed to cultivate on some of their land. This was the only livelihood his mother knew of, and she continued to farm. The rent was barely enough, but with the money earned by selling the harvest, Epifanio and his mother earned enough money to get by. Epifanio's mother made sure that he was able to go to school and continue his studies no matter what hardships they faced. She worked in the fields. He studied and helped her whenever he could. 10 years passed this way. Epifanio was now a 15-year-old boy. He could see all too well how tired his mother was, and it broke his heart to see her working so hard, all for his sake. So, Epifanio quit schooling, despite his mother's protest, and helped her work in the fields. With their efforts combined, they were able to make better progress with the fields. They managed to increase the harvest and earn some extra money. And now that Epifanio wasn't going to school, they barely had any expenses. Bit by bit, they started making good profits from their farming. Epifanio saw no reason to continue renting out their land to the exploitative restaurant owner. He never paid them a good price anyway. He told his mother that it was high time that they released their lands from him. The restaurant owner was evidently not happy about the lands not being rented. He tried to talk Epifanio out of it, but Epifanio told him that they were no longer needing the rent money. Their cultivations were paying off really well. He immediately regretted saying it, the restaurant owner's expression changed. He casually ended the conversation, saying that they didn't need to rent the land if they didn't want to. After nightfall, a group of thugs broke into the house again. This was an all too familiar scene for Epifanio. The night his father was killed was still burning in his memory, but this time Epifanio and his mother knew better than to protest them. They hid quietly in a corner while the men turned their house upside down, searching for the money. However, there wasn't any to be found. After rummaging in the house for an hour or so, the thugs walked away. Epifanio was glad that he trusted his intuition on the restaurant owner and told his mother to bury the money in the garden. Epifanio then got together with some of the neighboring farmers. He realized the power of the collective effort when things brightened for him and his mother when they joined their efforts in the field. 5 years went by and the farmers became quite the community, and Epifanio was smart. He was able to direct them to better days. They brought more land and thought of cultivating more types of crops, but this would take a little bit of starting cost. So the farmers went to the bank. But of course, they wanted nothing to do with some poor farmers. They didn't even want to hear their protests. Epifanio remembered how his mother also got turned away many years ago. He thought to himself that he would someday make a banking system that would support poor farmers who were putting in the effort to grow and earn more money. But this was just a fantasy. As the years wore on, Epifanio continued working in the fields. He eventually got married and had kids, but he always kept his mother close, taking care of her in every way possible. She had sacrificed so much for him, worked so hard for him. That's when the unthinkable happened. It was so unexpected that the family didn't know what to do. For a moment, they didn't even want to think that it was real. It was so unexpected and so incredible. Epifanio won the lottery. What are the odds of that happening? After all their hardships, they were finally able to enjoy some good fortune. Everyone was happy for Epifanio. He had worked so hard to build this community. The whole family went to the city to claim their prize. Once they got it, Epifanio's first thought was to buy a vehicle. His mother was now very old and traveling was very difficult for her, but once he stepped into a dealer's shop, Epifanio realized he had no clue what he was doing. As he stood around hopelessly, the dealer came to him and asked what was wrong. When Epifanio told his story, the dealer felt sympathetic. He took Epifanio to the bank and helped him open up an account to deposit his money. Epifanio used the money to build his farming community to new heights. He finally had the means to do the things he wanted to do, and he helped everyone earn more. One day, Epifanio visited the bank again. Despite all his wealth, he remained the humble farmer and dressed his part, so it was no surprise that everyone at the bank scorned his presence there. The customers kept eyeing him with mistrust, while the staff repeatedly tried to make him leave. But Epifanio was ready for this. He remembered how his people were treated the past few times, and expected nothing different. What he didn't expect was for one of the staff to call security. He was shocked when two burly men tried to remove him and began to protest loudly. That's when the manager walked out. He immediately ordered the guards to back off, and to everyone's shock, he informed that this man was in fact the owner of the bank. Epifanio didn't want to spend any more time at the bank than he had to, so he got right down to business and told the manager that he wanted to open a credit line for his small producers. He requested everyone to treat his people better the next time they come into the bank and walked away. What if you were Epifanio? What would you have done? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.